Hi there, my name's Aaron Short. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today is Monday, April the 4th. I hope you got through April Fools okay. Today is not a joke. We have a very serious show and we're talking about this guitar behind me. This is the Cole Clark. And thank you for joining us. Please put your questions in the chat as we go along and we'll bring on today's guest straight away. This is Miles Jackson. How you doing, my friend? Good to see you.
Yeah, very good. Very good indeed.
You know, it always blows my mind because it's just turned 5 o'clock here, and where you are, the time is
7 a.m. 7:03.
Well, thank you for getting up at such an early hour to talk about your guitars with us.
No problem. Always love to talk about our guitars.
That's awesome. And thanks everyone in the chat for joining us. We're usually on at 4. We did 5 today, so thanks for being flexible with us as well. Please put your questions in and chat amongst yourselves as we go. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell for future videos. So Miles, let's get straight into it. How are things going for you out there? I'm really curious to know what's up right now.
Oh, look, really good. It's the pandemic saw worldwide the biggest guitar boom I think we've seen since the Beatles came on the Ed Sullivan Show. It's just been extraordinary. So we've doubled our output. We put a second shift on, doubled our output, and even with that, we've got all production sold till the end of 2023. Right now we've been hit
23.
Yeah,
Whoa.
That's right. We are right now being hit by a lot of COVID, so we've got 70 staff and we've got 4 or 5 people out right now. That doesn't sound like a lot. What happens is it takes out like the whole paint department or the whole setup room or the whole wood area. So it's difficult. But they're little teething problems around things. So no, in general, it's going absolutely great. So no complaints at all.
I mean, it sounds outstanding, but to have orders sold out until the end of next year is, I can't get my head around it. I always say this, I'm really happy. I love guitars. I want the industry to do well, but I just can't believe how the sales are up like they are. And what are your thoughts? You must have some insight into this. And what are your thoughts with how to develop going forward? Like, are you going to expand production? Have you got any thoughts on that for future things?
Well, I think it'll come down to a new normal, but I think it's increased and it'll come back to it might have come from sort of there to right up and then it'll come back a bit. So I think it'll normalize a little bit. Our sales to the end of 2023 are a shop saying, well, I want 2 of this guitar, then 2 that month, 2 that month, 2 that month, 2 that month. It's not like we've got to deliver, 12,000 guitars tomorrow. It's schedule ordering over a time. So lots of customer orders can be put in still and replace guitars that haven't been started yet. So there's still, movement to be had and, guitars to be got. So, I think, as I say, it'll come down to it. I think during the pandemic, there's been a lot of people sitting at home with nothing to do. They buy a guitar. They actually get good at it because they're playing 3 or 4 hours a day. There's nothing else to do. And then they're buying, some recording device, microphones, electric guitars, whatever it is. And they're in they're having fun playing music, and they're, joining up with people, forming bands and so there's a whole lot of new musicians that have hit our space. I think during the pandemic.
Well, I feel, talking about my experience, I am now performing again. I have been for a few months. And
great.
So in that respect, have you seen it? There must be some kind of change, right? Because like you said, we were all at home all the time. And now more and more people are starting to go out and perform. A lot of my, people, musicians I know are now performing out again. I'm not sure how the scene is where you are, but are you seeing a change with that go one way or the other? The fact that we're getting more shows now?
Yes, that's right. So shows are back on, and I heard one musician saying, this next 6 months, I'm getting 2 years worth of shows done in the next 6 months kind of thing. And all the venues seem like they're full. They're just, people want to get out again. So it's been great. So that's my feeling just talking to artists in Australia, and I'm sure there's a variation there, but it's largely back on.
That's awesome. And you did, I got to tell this story. New Year's Eve, I didn't have a gig. I was at home here, and I was watching, I think Rick Beato did a live stream with some other YouTubers. I was watching that and some other shows that night. And you got, you dropped the video for the new preamp. And of course, that would have been January the 1st for you, but it was literally New Year's Eve. I was waiting for the ball to drop. And I was like, there's new gear already for next year. They've released a new preamp. And I was like, why did they release it on New Year's Eve, New Year's Day? But, hey, I think we should talk about that for a little bit. Because I know it seems to me you've been planning this for a while. I got to tell you this. A viewer who is very into acoustic guitar pickups a few months ago, when I mentioned the new preamp, he said, has it got anything to do with the fact that you've remade it due to part availability? And I know some companies have done that with products. I heard about one just yesterday. Did that have anything to do with it? Or was it literally just to further improve the design of the product? Why did you actually make these changes?
Yeah, no, nothing to do with the parts. It was started, the project was started back in about 2018, so way before any pandemics. And it was a matter of wanting to bring all of our design and engineering in-house, because we used to use a vendor to do it, with our patents and ideas. So that's all been bought in-house, and we wanted to fix some, while most of our artists and us felt that we had the most natural, best sounding preamp in the world, there were some things that we knew we could make it better, and I believe we have, and we're really happy with the result.
That's awesome. I'm going to show it on the screen for people that haven't seen it yet, and we'll talk about it for a little bit if that's okay. This one here, I think. Let me just unlock this 1 second. There it is. So what is different between this and the previous version?
Okay, so the box inside is totally different, and we've kept it that the interface is virtually the same except for the FC button. So basically, the things that we saw that we could improve were we've got, for people who don't know, we've got the piezo, suspended piezo under the bridge. We've got hang on 2 seconds. Thank you. I'm going to have my cup of tea. It's early here.
Nice. Cheers.
So the piezo under the bridge saddle, you got the face sensor, which is some piezos compressed into a little device. and then the microphone. Now the transition between the piezo's and the phase sensor wasn't that great, so we fixed that. And one of the briefs for the thing was that we wanted to say, if you wanted the same sound as the old one, you can have the same sound as the old one, so that people would go, oh, the old one was better. It did. There you go. Okay, flick these switches, go your hardest, whatever you like. That particular transition point is fixed on a button on the inside of the guitar, okay, on the inside of the preamp. The second thing on the inside of the preamp is that we've got some dip switches which allows to change the intensity of the phase sensor. So if it's a small guitar, it needs to have a different intensity to a grand auditorium, which needs a different intensity to a dreadnought. So we've got dip switches to be able to change that. There's also a handy phase reversal, which is for repairs down the track. If there's a phase issue that a repairer can just then fix very simply. And then the next problems that we saw were the microphone wasn't that great, and there was also a phase problem on the microphone where you turned the microphone up full and it would get dull at the top, and that was a phase cancellation on the high end of the mic. So we've improved the mic and got rid of that problem. And then the biggest thing, probably besides the mic, is the transition between the phase sensor and the microphone is this gap of frequency. So the gap of frequency is wider than a notch, so it's not a notch. It's a filter that was put in by the previous designers, and we're kind of not sure why, because what it does is just take out a whole lot of frequencies that don't affect feedback. But anyway, you can have that filter in, which is the FC button in, or the filter out, which is the FC button out. So the new sound is actually the button out because the frequency's out, and it just makes it a bigger, broader sound. So the transition on the bottom end of from the piezo to the phase sensor, we've got set to the better sound, the new better sound anyway. The higher end we've got is switchable between the old and the new, very simple, and you can hear it straight up. And I sort of don't know anybody who likes the old. There's a few blues musos who want a bit of a throaty, honky sort of sound slightly, and that kind of suits for some songs, but mostly people just sit on the new sound, which is the filter with the filter out.
I haven't made my review yet, and I'll say this is the honest truth. I've had that installed in this guitar, and I didn't do it myself, but I'm told it wasn't that hard to do, which is good to know, because this had the older system. So it's good to tell people, if you have a system with the battery light, it's very easy to switch it, right? But if you don't have a battery light, you have to replace the whole preamp and reshape the battery housing a little bit. Not quite as straightforward, but you can do it, but it's not quite as straightforward. But I heard the difference. I was really happy because, you try a new piece of gear and the company tells you these things and you think to yourself, well, sometimes you don't agree, whatever. I all the points you made about this, I completely agree with. The microphone sounds better to me. The FC button out, I get a bit more high and low, a bit less mid. And as I used to cut the mids anyway, I found that more desirable. Sometimes I would still cut the mids further, but at least I was in a starting place where I could then do that rather than just having to cut them all and have nowhere else to go. So I like that sound. But I will say this, the last gig I did, because I knew you were coming on the show, I was playing with it more. So the last gig I did, which is quite a big restaurant, I'm pretty loud. I did press the button in at the end of the set, and I found myself actually preferring that sound simply because I think the volume I'm at. That button kind of reminds me of like a contour. Like the AER amps have a contour switch that boosts the bass and highs. It reminds me of that in the sound that you get. And I actually thought, well, actually, I think it's good, but I think it's good to have the option. It's just another option, another tonal option. But I wanted to ask you, obviously you put that there because original owners of the guitars are so into that sound, I had a thought today, is that something that you would remove in the future if no one said they didn't like using that old mode, or are you planning on leaving that in there? Have you not even thought about that yet?
We'd leave it in there. But if people are using it out all the time, then if they're using it out all the time, then you can take the faceplate off, take the button out, make sure it's in the up position, and it will just stay with that new sound all the time. And that way you can't press the button by mistake. But yeah, look, there's one artist I was talking to who, when he strums, he uses the button in, and when he picks, he uses the button out, because it gives a little bit more volume boost as well, and makes it's super musical, super sweet sounding in the out position kind of thing. And either way, it's a better microphone, so it is a better sound anyway. So no plans to take that out at all. No.
Okay, cool. I think the more options, the better. And I really like the fact you've got the option of the other sound. Like I said, 9 out of 10 shows I've done with it, I've used the new mode, but I think there's still a usage for the other mode. So I mean, look, the more options you have as a performer on stage, the better. So I think that's great. I like the fact there's a battery life now, although the battery life is incredible anyway. And that's not changed, right? With the new system, you still get the long battery life.
Well, it has changed. It's doubled.
Double. So
it's it's around about 150 hours. So So if you, with batteries, when you unplug them and plug them in and unplug them and plug them in, they recharge a little bit. So there's no hard and fast how long is it. If you did 1 gig that was about 127 and a half hours long, your battery would run out.
I haven't done one of those.
No. But we did a test, and at about 127 and a half hours, the battery runs out. But because you're taking it out and plugging it in, taking it out and plugging it in, it will last probably about 150 hours. When the battery light starts flashing, you've got 10 hours.
Right.
And it'll get faster and faster. 10 hours before it starts to distort, because the voltage will get too low and it will start to distort. So you can still do you're in the middle of a gig, battery light starts flashing, that's fine. It's not going to distort for another 10 hours.
I really like that. I've used systems that last like 25 hours, and it's just, if you do 3 shows a week, it's stress. You're going to have that show where the battery dies in the middle of a song, and sometimes the battery just dies on you and you've got nothing. So I think that's great. I love the way when you pull the input jack out, it doesn't pop. I think that's great. Everything about the system is so great for playing on stage, and I don't know why more people don't do things like this. So you've got 3 pickups in there, lots of control on the guitar, and everything is thought through logically. I think I really like it. I think it's really great. So the guitars you're shipping now have this, right?
Yes. And by the way, this is analog. So the parts problems there are worldwide are nothing to do with these parts. So we have no problems, getting parts for these and everything. So it's good old-fashioned analog. We like analog.
Analog's good. No latency, right? It's a good thing.
That's it.
It's just I heard of a pedal. Yeah, I won't say who it is. I heard of a pedal yesterday where you can't buy them right now, and the rumor I've heard is they're having to re-engineer the whole device because the part is not available for the device. I guess it's a real problem, right? So I just wondered if that was a factor, but no, that's I mean, if
it's
it
for
was
microchips, it's not for analog.
Right. But even if it was, it wouldn't matter. Like I said, all the points you've mentioned that are improved with the system, I agree with. I think you did a great job, and I like the fact that you're continuing to push things forward, because you already had a system that people said, well, that's a great stage system, and you're continuing to push it forward. I think that's a really good thing. So you have a new do you have a new team now that are working on the electronics?
So we've got a new person who started probably back in 2017, sort of 5 years ago, and he is a local legend here in Australia. and he's an analog engineer, digital engineer, valve engineer, guitar player, guitar setup guru. So he's our go-to person with all of this, and he rebuilt this ground up, which was just an awesome piece of work. He's involved in another thing which we can't talk about at the moment, but it's a patent that we've been working on, and it's a really interesting patent. So look out for that. But that's so he's just awesome. And if he was in a bigger country like America, he'd be I believe a household name kind of thing, like a Seymour Duncan or a Larry Damasio kind of person. So he's great.
Cool. So you're still continuing to work on stuff. That's what we like to hear. It's really great. Okay, let's
we've just on that we've got multiple projects lined up, and we've just got to get them on the CNCs. So we've got two projects, big projects with multiple instruments as part of those projects lined up, ready to program, ready to put on. We've just got to have the manpower to do it, and there's a labour squeeze here in Australia, just like everywhere, I'm sure. It's really lots of products coming out.
See, that surprises me, because I'm looking at other companies. They're not really releasing any new products because they can't get, I guess digital companies cannot get the parts for those products. Other acoustic guitar makers, I feel, like you said, are trying to fill orders and kind of focusing on their core lines. So you think it's important to still bring out new products as well during that time?
Yeah, look, we've doubled our output with the second shift, so we now go from 7 a.m. till 11:30 at night. If things back off to a new normal, which is a bit lower than the craziness it is at right now, we need to maintain that output and the sales for that output. So we feel that if we've got a raft of products to introduce, that they will, if there is a slight dip, we'll be able to increase again and stay on that level we are now.
Okay, well, that's exciting. We want to see new products. I heard a quote from Paul Reed Smith a few months ago. He said, "Without new product, you're going to die, because you have to keep releasing new stuff all the time." And I'm sure in business that makes sense. All right, let's go to the chat. So we say hi to our friends there. And when we come back from that, let's spend the next half of the show talking about the thinline, because that's a new product that's still fairly new. So we have Jim here. He's in Vermont. Hi, Jim. Good to see you. David Belcher in wet and windy Oregon. How's the weather out there in Australia today?
23 and cloudy here in Melbourne. But it's been rain. We've had lots of floods over the last few months, so huge floods and problems. So
I heard about that. Yeah, the floods. Were you affected by those as well?
Not down in Melbourne, but I was actually on a sales trip up north and got sort of stuck in them up north for a while. So ended up staying with a mate and drinking beer, and it wasn't that bad.
Yeah. State Explorers, wet and windy. It sounds like it's wet and windy a lot of places today. And Rick is here. How you doing, Rick? BMO's here. Says hi to everybody. He says, send me a couple cases of Cooper's Porter. Is that a beer? I'm guessing.
Cooper's Porter. Yeah. It's a South Australian beer. Very nice brewery.
So here's a question related to the pickup system. And BMO says, would you consider adding a Fishma Aura Plus or some other loader now that IRs are becoming popular? So impulse responses have become popular, have become popular. Digital with electric guitars is obviously a huge thing with Kemper and Quad Cortex and Helix and all these things. You have done some. You released the digital preamp at one time, didn't you?
Yeah, look, we pulled it off the market. We weren't happy with it. But look, the aim of us, and I would have thought most acoustic guitar companies, is to have the most natural sound you can. So you've got the guitar, and it makes that sound louder. Now, if we've done that I believe our sound is more natural as far as a natural acoustic guitar sound than the Fishman Aura. If you want to put them side by side, I don't think there's any comparison. And the power and dynamic range of the full sound of ours is enormous. You know, the bottom end you get from it is amazing, but not unnatural. So I think I would say to that person, you know, play a Fishman Aura side by side a Cole Clark through a PA, not through an amplifier, which is kind of processing and trying to rehandle stuff and make stuff sound better than it is. Straight into a PA, nowhere to hide. Put a Cole Clark into it. Put a Fishman Aura into it. I don't like talking about other products, but you brought it up, so
he always does. He always that's his thing. You know, I've spent hours and hours and weeks and months on this IR stuff, and my thought is no one's perfected it yet. If you could make a pedal or a system that takes something like this Neumann and recreates it 1-to-1, I can see a use for that, for recording and live streaming maybe. But like you said, I've also been thinking lately, just because you get that sound doesn't necessarily mean that's the sound you want on stage. And what I've noticed from using this guitar the last few weeks with the new system is that you get, like you said, you get power and clarity that you wouldn't even get from a microphone. So that's why I like it. You also get that incredible body sound from the face sensor. You know, you can loop, you can get those drum sounds. It's a different thing for me. So while I think that I mean, look at digital. Look what digital's doing. I mean, we're using digital now, and the electric guitar world is flooded with digital. There's still arguments, isn't there, between tube amps and digital even now? But there's definitely a place for digital. I think my thoughts are it would be good to use some sort of IR thing even in conjunction with this. But I think it would take so much time and resources and money to develop it because I haven't seen anyone get it right yet. That I don't know if it'd be worth it, and I don't think I would even use it on stage. Maybe for streaming, but when I stream lately, I just use the microphone anyway. So I you know, it is what it is.
We are very lucky we didn't go down that path because right now we'd be out of production because we wouldn't be able to get the components. But even if we had if we had a guitar tuner in our preamp, we'd probably be out of production because you can't get the microchips that do the guitar tuning. So it's a disaster for us. We're like sitting there, good old fashioned analog, but sounding exactly the way we want it to sound, and we think it's the best amplified guitar sound, acoustic guitar sound in the world. We're comfortable with that. Yeah.
No, just to clarify, I'm thinking like way down the line. Like I think there is a place for all that digital stuff when it's done right. Yeah. But if it's not done right, I think it's more of a gimmick and a experiment than something you can actually use in practice. But you're absolutely right. Of course, if you had gone that way, then you would have problems now with the chips. So that's a good point.
Yeah. And look, we sat in the production meeting, the design meeting when we set out to design this pickup, and you know, there was people in the room who said, yeah, we should go digital. And I said, well, that's great. I got no problem with going digital, but what's the reason? What's the reason? And we couldn't really come up with a reason to do it. I mean, when someone's got a reason to do it, then we'll add that to it. And I think it's a combination of both because I think what we achieve now is great, and I think it's going to be hard for someone to go past what we're achieving now, and even meet it. So when there's a reason, we'll look at it. That's for sure.
No, I don't disagree. Like it's even with electric guitar. Sometimes it's like, well, I'm looking for that digital solution to plug straight in, but I just use one tone and one effect. So I'm like, well, just use the tube amp and the effects pedal. Like and stick a mic in front of it. Do you need a digital solution to go direct with IRs and things? I mean, some people do that use in-ears and do big tours, whatever. But if you don't, why are you even using that at all? So you know, I don't disagree. Rick says he knows a lot of people that leave guitars plugged in. Yeah, I don't do that, but I know some people. I see that a lot on forums. Like the battery life is terrible in my acoustic guitar. It keeps dying. I was like, do you leave it plugged in? Yes. Well, there you go. You left it plugged in for a month, you know.
That's right. Yeah, unfortunately, there's no answer to that. You got to unplug it.
You got to unplug it.
Yeah.
He says, "Where do you hail from?"
Melbourne,
Australia. And he said, Cold Chisel, good band from Australia.
Yes. No, great band.
Chad Boston is here, and how you doing, Chad? And David says, "Wish we had a shop around here that carried Cole Clark's. Guess I'll have to go to Brooklyn to play errand." First of all, not in Brooklyn, David, but that's the biggest thing for me, Miles. I often look online to see what guitars are around. I see there's new guitars just came into Groon. I was there last summer. It's a good place. But are you being affected by like shipping costs and availability to get the guitars over to like England and America right now? How's that going?
Okay, so look, shipping costs are up a bit, but not too bad. And our dollar has been down, so our dollar's been cheaper for the distributors to buy. So it's sort of balanced it out a bit. So there's no problem with that where that's concerned. No, as far as distribution, we've got a fabulous partner in the US, which is called USA, and they're a AAA grade distributor that we couldn't wish for as any better than that. That's for sure. And these guys are fabulous, and they're opening new dealers all the time. So all I'd say to you is if you can just keep an eye on our the Cole Clark dealer listing on our website, which we try to keep very up to date to the US, and also you can jump on Korg USA's website and see what's happening there as well. And look, feel free to reach out to me and say where you live, and I can put you onto their sales reps, and they can the product manager over there, Ian, and he can direct you to your closest store. And there's certainly, online, plenty of availability too. So if you are in a more remote area, but it's a huge country, the US, and we've got 26 million people here in Australia, and you've got approaching 300 million, and that's hard for us to fathom. And there's a small community might have 2 million people where you are. So for us, that's a big city. And we're not in all those communities with 2 million people, but it's increasing all the time. That's for sure.
Well, I just saw I'm on the email list for Groon, and I just got their new inventory just came in. They just got some new guitars in, so let's take a quick look at them as we're talking about them right now. And they got a Angel 3, which looks very nice, and also they got the Thinline, which we're going to talk about next. So that's a good segue, right? So they just got a Thinline in here. I'll show it on the screen. And so let's see if we can see the width here. Is there a picture? There we go.
There you go.
Right. So, did we talk about this last time? I think we did, but just to recap, why did you make the Thinline, and what's the response being now these are shipping to customers?
Oh, look, the response has been enormous. It's become one of our biggest sellers straight away.
Wow.
It's 7 centimeters thick. No, you guys are inches. I'm sorry. As opposed to 11 centimeters. So it's why? Because it's super comfortable. It changes the amplified sound ever so slightly because the phase sensor picks up the sound of the guitar you're in with our system. So it does. It's not better or worse. It's just slightly different, and you can EQ it to do what you want. Many systems pick up the sound of the vibrated strings. Now, of course, ours does as well, but it also picks up the sound of the guitar. So, a big body guitar will have slightly more, body to it than a small body guitar. But, it's so close. The other thing with the Thinline is we made it very accessible to the neck, so you can get way further up the neck. So we've decreased the neck, the heel, the heel join.
Yes.
Made that go in more of a straight line and then kick back instead of a gradual sort of thing, so you can get right up to those high notes. And that's
that's cool.
And I think what's happening is that the Thinline humbucker is becoming the biggest selling humbucker because it makes so much sense. but the thin line in general is just so comfortable. People pick up and go, wow, it just feels great. You're on stage, you're playing, and you want to be able to, get through your gig with pleasure. Not necessarily reaching out with this big guitar that that you're having to struggle with. So yeah, it's really good. And the humbucker guitars, that range is around about 25% of our sales. So it's a huge part of our sales. Yeah, wow. It is just incredible. So because you've got our acoustic sound, and then the second sound is a Lola Imperial humbucker in the bridge position. That gives you, you can do some AC/DC, no problem. It's full on humbucker, go through a distortion unit. We've got a Blackstar valve guitar amp in our workshop there that we power along with, and it's just great. It's huge. So
I didn't know that about the heel. And now I know that. Yeah, right. That's cool. Because I notice on my guitar, when I go up there, I get a little bit stuck sometimes. So that's good to know as well. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So definitely a great option with the humbucker as well for like an electric player that wants to go acoustic, right? Because you can cover all your bases.
Yeah. Look, the whole humbucker thing, we thought it was going to be all about people who wanted to play acoustic and then wanted to have an electric sound that they can switch to, or loop the acoustic, play over the top with an electric. And it's certainly that, but probably almost as big or bigger is the combined sound. So you'll get a solo artist who will play their first set with it on straight acoustic, and the second set just blend in a little bit of crunch behind the acoustic sound, and then have just a bigger sound. Almost sounds like there's two guitars on stage for their second set, and and it also allows them to solo out if they just add some more volume to it and rock in. It's just go real hard. So it's interesting to see how people are using them.
I just want to give a quick shout out to Dustin Adair. Says it's in Washington State, USA. Just bought a second Cole Clark last weekend. So
thank you. It's appreciated.
I'll give you one of these.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I saw you, Dustin. I saw you in the Facebook group. Congratulations. Yeah, something I was looking for the other day is that sound hole in this guitar. This is interesting to me as well. I'm not sure why it is. The sound hole in the Fat Lady, this one, is smaller than in the Angel. And that also means I'm currently looking for a feedback buster plug to put in this one. I think you had some made by a company here in America, right? With your logo on it. They're made by...
Loot Hole,
that's right. So I want to get one of those. Do you know why? I was just wondering, because he actually put a picture of his two guitars on Facebook. That was Dustin. And I noticed straight away that the sound hole is bigger in the Angel than the Fat Lady. And of course, as someone that likes to sniff sound holes, we need to address that question.
Yeah, there you go. That's very good. I like that. So we make guitars. We try to make them the sound that we want to make them, and make the sound as big as we can. And we don't restrict our sound hole size by the size that commercial feedback busters are made. And you get a different sound from having a bigger hole or a smaller hole. And I wasn't in the design team. Yeah, I was in the design team back in the time where we were designing them, but certainly an FL is a different size to a Martin D18, and then an Angel is different again.
They're all different. That's the thing.
Yeah. I mean, most people don't use a feedback buster on Cole Clark. I'd be interested to see what your comments are. I know Lloyd Spiegel, one of our key artists here, he plays arenas with up to 10,000 people, and he's never used one, and he plays pretty loud and all that. But certainly you might be in some smaller venue with a really loud foldback, and maybe that feeds back. But the way our system is shelved, there's no microphone in a feedback zone. It doesn't sort of feed back. So I kind of equate it to if people have have always used a feedback on their previous guitar, they buy a new guitar and without really listening to it, just automatically buy a feedback buster. What we would say to them is just try it without first, you probably won't need one. If you do, buy one. That's fine. Now, because they're made specific sizes, they come to us in Australia. So if someone wants to buy one from the US, they just jump online and buy it from us. Postage will take a few weeks and is probably $35 Australian or something for postage. But if they do buy, I think it's $125 or $150 Australian worth of merchandise, then it's free freight. So you could buy a strap and a shirt or a hoodie, and away you go. So just bear all that in mind if you are after a feedback buster.
Well, again, let me clarify, because I've seen people online say basically you don't need one with a Cole Clark, like you just said. So let me just clarify. I play through a conventional PA system most of the time, pretty loud, and I don't need one. You're right. But here's a few scenarios. Like if you're outside and using something like one of the tower systems that really spreads the sound around, and there's any potential you might turn around to speak to someone and face it for some reason, that can obviously feedback because you're basically right in front of the speaker, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, the thing is, I've found that any acoustic system can feedback if you want it to. So it just removes that possibility. But here's what I've found. This happened just last week. As I loop, because I do solo shows, so as I loop, it's so sensitive, which is why I like the system, but it picks up everything. So if you're in a kind of noisy restaurant where everyone's like hitting their forks together and talking loud and drinks are pouring, that noise and even my singing will be recorded through the whole PA. Now that can be good. I actually use that sometimes as an effect. But if you want to keep it really clean, I think it's good to plug the sound hole, and then it kind of give you a cleaner loop. So I'm talking very kind of specific situations. I want to make it clear that the system is very feedback resistant, but there's times when I think everyone should carry those things around. I've also done, like you said, I've been to like a jam night where I've jumped on stage with a different system, but jumped on stage as a mic in the guitar, and the sound is so ridiculously loud. I probably shouldn't have even been on that stage, but of course, when it's that loud, anything's even a system without a mic would feedback. So I just think everyone should have one on them, and the fact that they are a different size on this guitar just means I want to get one, so I always have it with me in case I need it. But I agree. It is a very resistant system. But I mean, you've got 3 pickups in there, and I imagine if you're using the one with the humbucker, you probably want one then, right? Would you agree with that?
Doesn't change it at all.
Really?
In fact,
interesting.
Yeah. Huh. And I think probably the new microphone might feedback if you really try hard a little bit more than the old one, which wasn't picking up as much. So as you say, it's a tool in the toolbox, and it's worth having. And they also they're carved out of wood, so they're really nice and all that. They have a rubber They come in either walnut or maple, so you can have a dark wood or a light wood version as well.
It does look nice. And the interesting thing with Loot Hole is I noticed they leave some holes in there as well. Like they leave some gaps, right? Like usually when you get a plug, I mean, don't get me wrong, you can just buy a sound hole plug like this one and just get a knife out and change. You can do that as well, I believe, like this one. In fact, I actually did just squeeze this in there. It was all kind of warped inside, but it would work. I've even done a gig, again, different guitar, different system, but years ago I grabbed a beer coaster and just taped it on the front of the guitar.
Yes.
A lot of this stuff is like the room you're in. Some bars you're like in the corner and the speaker is right in the corner and you get that kind of bass build up. So anyway, like I said, it's good to have one. You have them available, and I'm definitely going to grab one. But let's talk about... I showed Dustin, right? Yeah, I did. David said, "Oh, hey, good point, David. You can still sniff the guitar through those Loot Hole feedback busters because they're." I know it became far too much of a joke that I made a mug about it, but there we go. Thank you for. If you want to support my channel, you can buy a sound hole sniffer mug to go with your Loot Hole Cole Clark cover. Yeah, the reason I said that about the humbucker is I'm guessing if you ran distortion through it, like with like a Gibson, right? When you've got a Gibson electric semi-acoustic, they can feedback more than the solid bodies. You haven't found? I haven't tried one, so I can't comment. But
No,
you haven't found that?
no. It's
Oh,
no difference to a Les Paul or a 335.
that's awesome.
Seriously.
Yeah.
And it should be, but it doesn't.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And
it's probably something to do with the Spanish heel, just focusing the sound, just works for it.
And would you say the woods as well? Because like this one is all blackwood. I noticed the thin lines are all blackwood, and that's a very stiff wood, right? So that helps with that as well. I've noticed that too with some guitars that are very resonant. They don't make the best stage guitars because you get lots of weird frequencies and stuff going on because they're just moving so much. So
yes.
Having said that,
look, people say, can I buy a humbucking model with a redwood top? We just say no. It's not going to work as well. It doesn't work as well. Too open. Too much.
David said, I like that Cole Clark uses their native woods. But having said that, Miles, I did see one. I think it was on the Groon site that is more traditional, to American kind of woods. It's got the Sitka top and rosewood back and
sides. Yeah.
So
people can that can be ordered. Spruce rosewood can be ordered, no problem. I think out of this year we'll probably do 5,000 or 6,000 guitars, and 50 of them will have a spruce top, and another 40 or 50 will have a cedar top, and everything else will be timbers that are either native to Australia or foreign timbers grown in Australia, like Californian redwood. So but you certainly can do that. Different companies become different, synonymous with different woods, like Martin's, very much, spruce, rosewood, mahogany, we're very much, these different sort of native timbers in Australia. And, sometimes people will look at a spruce rosewood from us and say, like, what's this? What's this weird thing? Just like they'd look at Martin and go, what's this weird thing if they came up with one of our guitars. So I think, we all get labeled with our sort of, with being, we all, have a place and get, have a supporter base which likes what we do, whether it's traditional or not traditional or whatever.
Let me show that. Actually, the Angel 3 I mentioned before is the one that has this. This is a spruce top and rosewood back and side. So let's just show that.
Yep.
That's cool.
Indian rosewood. That's a beautiful guitar. Beautiful guitar. Yeah.
That's. I was gonna say. Do you remember this one being made? But.
There's a run of 2 or 3 of them came through. It's ebony fingerboard, Queensland maple neck. It's a lovely guitar as well. And rosewood's interesting because rosewood is, so rosewood fascia on the headstock.
Very nice.
Rosewood has got a natural bottom end to it, which no other timber on the planet does. So it's not that it's a pretty wood or anything like that. It just does something that other timbers don't do. When you're amplifying, and we're famous for our amplification, when you're amplifying, that bottom end that's produced by rosewood is not necessarily a good thing. It introduces you a whole lot of woofy bottom end that you don't, it's hard to get rid of. On a smaller body guitar like this, not the case. This would amplify well because it's a smaller body, and the rosewood just gives it a bit more oomph kind of thing. But it's rosewood's absolutely great in the living room, but not so good in the studio or live. Would be my generalization.
So, do you send these ones to the USA to appeal to the kind of Martin fans, or?
We make anything that anybody orders. So, our distributor in the USA ordered these. We made them. Generally speaking, funnily enough, when we moved away from rosewood fingerboards, the US readily moved away from rosewood fingerboards as well. and they didn't have to at that point. They still did a few rosewood fingerboards, but they went, you know what, everyone else is doing rosewood fingerboards. Let's us do the sustainable option. And then, of course, rosewood became listed on CITES, and the rest is history. So, but the US, there's certainly an element of people who say, no, everything's got to have a rosewood fingerboard or an ebony fingerboard, but certainly not everybody, and not our market in the US.
Yeah. Also, I just realised that's Gruen Guitars, and I met George Gruen last summer, and of course he's really into the vintage guitars and all those American guitars as well. So maybe he requested a guitar like that. I don't know, but it looks amazing. It looks really nice.
Yeah. But it's interesting. Gruen's is really interesting because they're such a traditional shop. They're fantastic people. Yeah. Great store. So we're so lucky to be in there, and a lot of our competitors sort of say, well, how do you get in there? How did you do that? Well, it's because they need a guitar that's great to plug in, and we've got this great plug-in guitar, so so we're there in the icon of stores. It's great.
Really awesome stuff. All right, so people are starting to talk about the summer and the NAMM show. Are you guys going to be at the NAMM show this year?
No, we're not, for the first time in about 10 years. Look, a lot of the big suppliers are not going to be there. So it means that it's not dragging in our distributors from around the world. And if we can't have meetings with our distributors around the world, then it's we can't spend the sort of money we need to spend to be there, unfortunately. I hope that next March 23 is the next NAMM, and we hope to be there then.
I don't think anyone's heard that yet, but now they have.
I think it's common knowledge. Everyone.
It is now.
It is now.
I heard a rumor. I'm sure they're going to announce it soon because it's not that far away either, is it? It's coming up pretty soon.
Yeah, that's right.
And
Well, that's a proposed date I'll go with. How's that? So if that's on, then hopefully all the bigger manufacturers are there as well, and then it becomes a full show again. But we'll watch this space.
Well, a lot of people are not going, and I understand why. I'm glad they're doing it. I really enjoyed going to the one in Nashville last year. It was really cool. I mean, obviously, completely different experience. And like we said earlier, some companies are not shipping product right now, so it makes sense. It also makes sense next year if they do change the date, because one reason I'm not going is that in June I have a lot of weddings and gigs come in, and it's more expensive to go there, and it's going to be hot there. So it makes sense to pull it forward a few months as well. And hopefully by that time, everyone will go, and it'll be the show that we used to know and love. So I hope so.
I mean, one thing that we are doing, though, is that because of this, we'll have at least two US trips this year, going around our dealers, doing clinics and product evenings and afternoons and stuff. So there's one we're planning at the moment for mid to late June. So, check it out on social media, what we're doing, and please come down and catch us at your local music store.
Is Lloyd coming as well?
He can't. He's got gigs. So we will have a guest artist.
Same thing, you see. Yeah. He has gigs. So yeah.
He has gigs. He's jamming 2 years into 6 months. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're still coming over. I'm glad you mentioned that there might be some other stuff coming. And as always, you've got an open invitation to come here anytime and talk with me about what you're up to. And I really appreciate your time in doing that, because I love all this stuff, and I'm really happy with the new system. So congratulations on that. And I do encourage everyone to check out the Cole Clarks. Like I said, they're coming through. And if you look on the sites and you see one available, then I do encourage you to go and check them out. And I will make the updated review, because as part of my pickup series, I have the system in there already, but that's the older system. So I'm going to update that review with the new system at some point as well, very soon. But yeah, I'm really impressed with it. I love what you're doing. Obviously, as a performer, I don't think there's enough companies pushing the live sound thing. Some companies have kind of not doing much with that at all, which I just don't understand. But I understand that acoustic guitars can be great played acoustically, but I also want to see more people put work into the live scene. You know, I saw John Mayer recently, and he had a much better sound, and I was trying to figure out. I was trying to contact his sound engineer to be like, what are you doing to do that? I'm so fascinated by it, and I want to see more development in that area. So I'm really glad there's companies like yourself that are actually taking that really seriously and doing good stuff. So good job.
Thank you, and thanks for the support.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone out there.
Thanks everyone for watching. Go and check out the Cole Clark website to learn more. Subscribe to my channel and ring the bell to see the next video. Take care and be well, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, Miles. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Cheers.
Bye-bye. Bye, everyone. Thanks for watching. Meet me at the station at midnight.